Hello everybody, this is Dr. Lynn Erickson. I'm sorry for the delayed start here, but we're now ready to go. So for those of you who are watching this via Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. I think this will be a lively, if not an engaging conversation about how to make your gut healthier. And we look forward to seeing you in our office to do these live too, because we always have some fun prizes for those who attend those lives. But we'll get started anyway. So this class is cleverly called, do you have a gut feeling how to build GI health naturally? Now, we're not going to make this exhaustive. We're going to do the best we can with a kind of a primer on gut health and what it needs to be healthy. And then we are more than happy to assess with you individually what may be going on there and how we can help address that, because we have lots of programs that are designed to actually help detox and then actually help rebuild and keep the gut healthy. You'll see how extremely important it is when you get through the end of this class. You'll understand that it's not just something that is, the occasional tummy ache, but it really has to do with your overall well-being in a major way. So we'll deep dive right into it. When I do a class like this, I make some assumptions, and one of those is going to be this, that you're actually here because you'd like to be healthy. As healthy as possible, including your GI system. That's important. If you're not here to be healthy, or you don't want your gut to be healthy, you can turn this off now, okay? Number two would be that you would like to be healthy as naturally as possible. We have found in our office, after having opened in this location for 25 years and been practice for 32 years, that we tend to attract people who actually are looking for a way to work with the laws of nature and with the way their body naturally works, rather than simply trying to suppress or stimulate the body's production of things with medication or, God forbid, have surgery. Number three, that you would rather be proactive than reactive. This means that you're going to take charge of your health while you have it, as opposed to clamoring around to try to get it back once you've lost it. And that's very important. There's things we can do. Now, a lot of times people didn't know that something was important until they've lost it to some degree. So, but the nice thing is that you can actually work on the acute phase, which is the, stop the fire, putting that out. And then the next phase, which is the rebuilding the house mode. And you can do those sequentially or together at one time. And those are important things to do. And then lastly, you're willing to make changes and work at it. So anything that we do to improve is going to take work. Even if you're going to take a medication for something, it's a change in your routine to take a couple of this with meals or without, whatever. But those things that are natural require work. I found is that I think about natural health care, that all natural health care requires us to do something differently than we did before. Medicine tends to be typically very passive. You go into some expert who tells you what's wrong, and they're going to tell you where to go to have this procedure done or that pill taken. Whereas in natural health care, we do things that restore balance and restore vitality and 100% function as best we can, but you have to do something that for yourself with guidance, of course. So the GI system is amazing. It's actually from your mouth to the exit, it's actually almost 29 to 30 feet. As it says here, 300 to 400 square feet, which is a lot. My office is 1,700 square feet, so roughly 1/4 of our surface area here is actually like the lining of your intestines. Now, I don't think that it actually includes, though, the little microvilli that you have. But we're just talking about the square inches of the intestines itself. If you throw the microvilli in there, it's a lot more for surface absorption to get nutrients into your system that you need. And so it performs many essential functions. And of course, the organs are arranged in a sequential order. They're not random, right? It would make sense that you actually have this thing that chews stuff and actually eventually swallows stuff and then actually churns it up with acid to break it down and then sends it through a system of things that allows you to absorb it. And then it gets to a part of it where you're simply going to try to save what you need, like the water and so forth, and then excrete what it is you don't need. It's just an amazing thing. And you have these things along the way that help out, like the gallbladder and the liver and these different organs that actually do things for digestion as well, too. It helps you get the most from your diet, environment, and your body's own creations too. It's pretty amazing. Like, there are things that your GI system produces for you that you need, and if you didn't have a healthy gut, it would be actually hard for it to do. So that's important. Now, these are fun little things we have here. This neglect or abuse your GI system is how you care for it. One way, this poor guy here has been told by his physician, I'm afraid your irritable bowel syndrome has now progressed. You actually have furious and vindictive bowel syndrome. Well, that would be bad, of course. But if you treat your body a certain way, it will actually talk back and let you know in no uncertain terms, almost like some of the pains you get may be actually shouting at you, take care of me differently. But then a good, healthy gut system taking care of all these things we list right here, which we will talk about, probiotics, the flora you have, fermented foods, and so forth. If you pay attention to nurture it, it will actually serve you very nicely. And it's important that we do this because it actually is life itself that we're actually rebuilding and fueling for the future. So, classic signs of gut dysfunction include, but are not limited to, things like this: having a lack of energy, where you just seem like you always are run down; having immune system problems, for example, recurring infections and allergies; abdominal pain, having acidic stomach or heartburn, even gastroesophageal reflux disease where things are coming back up and burning in the esophagus. At that point, it's very important to be addressed because that can actually become malignant or at least irritated to the point that can cause some bad growths in there. Irritable bowel syndrome, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, diverticulitis, which actually is when we actually have outpouchings in the colon that become inflamed, colon cancer for sure, and many, many more. And the person that has these things may have some version of this going on. They actually just don't look well. They actually often have, protracted situations where their gut is misbehaving. The two big ones, diarrhea, constipation, or intensive pains or abnormal motion there, all classic signs of a gut that's actually not being cared for well and actually having problems. So the first thing your gut has to do, it has to digest things. So your body has a responsibility to take raw material. And this woman here actually looking at the fridge has some choices. On the left side of her fridge, she's got some great things there, things that are whole foods, things that are found in nature as they're shown, off of a tree from the ground, rinsed off and cleaned and they're ready to go or maybe lightly steamed. And then on the right-hand side of the fridge, you see things that are highly processed, things that actually have been ground down so that the most basic things, all that's left are like lots of carbohydrates and sugars and so forth. These are not great things for us. Highly concentrated as far as calories go, but virtually no nutrition in there. And so you have to take those raw materials and turn them into something such as complex as your eye. What they know is, if you think about it, if you were going to build an eye from something, you would, if you just looked at an apple and a red velvet cupcake, you would very easily know, first of all, which one's going to taste incredible when you bite into it. The cupcake's going to have that one hands down. But if you learn to appreciate the taste of an apple, what it's doing for you, you'll notice that an hour later, after eating an apple, you feel lots of energy. You're more regular. You have these great things coming in that only nature makes. They estimate that an apple has between 10 and 20,000 things that we call phytonutrients, things we can't even make in a lab. And nature provides them to us for free because we need those. So you take these raw building blocks to actually fuel and repair things like this. And does it make a difference? It absolutely does. This is a study I came across a few years ago. What they said in this medical journal called Medical Hypothesis is that when they look at countries that start to consume more and more processed foods, in this case they were specifically looking at sugar and then seed oils and hydrogenated or trans fats, that when you add these things in, refined flour, added sugars, vegetable oils, and artificially created trans fats, that when you increase the sugar and polyunsaturated vegetable oil consumption, it's invariably, meaning it always happens, associated with new onset or rising prevalence of age-related macular degeneration, generally within 30 or 40 years of the beginning, the increasing consumption of these proxy marker processed food components, which that could be achieved by simply eating 3 donuts a week, which should get your attention because I know some people actually eat 3 donuts a day on a big bender. So what it tells you is that within 2 generations, you can actually have people seeing these things. Now, what it would mean is that let's say that everybody in the country started to eat this way with highly processed foods. Well, the older generation that actually ate, say, more whole foods for a while, they're going to have less effect. But the younger generations, and especially those that we pass our genes on to, are to have much higher levels of these bad things. And to have macular degeneration, where you just learn progressively to not see, you eventually have this vision that's completely distorted. I would never recommend that you do that. It's just terrible because, that's a serious disability and dysfunction in your life that's actually controlled almost exclusively by diet. Okay? Whole foods contain nutrients, micronutrients, fiber, water, etc. in balance. One of the things we're trying to control in your body is actually oxidative stress and inflammation. When your body is actually having your free radicals going around and destroying cells and your body's kind of cooking itself from the inside out, it's not a good thing because it can actually create things in the eye such as cataracts, glaucomas, diabetic neuropathy, and macular degeneration. But foods that contain polyphenols and carotenoids, which are things that, once again, are going to be fruits and vegetables primarily, have significant preventive and therapeutic benefits against the aforementioned conditions. So again, the choice is yours. What are you going to put on your fork and your spoon and your plate? And that will have an impact actually on how healthy your eye is for many conditions. Because the eye is one of the places that shows up first because it only has one layer in the retina. So if something bad happens to that layer, you're in trouble. And that's what we see when people start to consume the wrong foods. Now, you want to start eating as young as healthy as possible too. Harvard Medical School did a study where they took 582 breast cancer patients and a little over 1,500 people who actually did not have it. And what they did is they actually got dietary information provided by the mothers of the participants, and they showed that if you consumed French fries as a child, and that's especially between the ages of 3 and 5, that significantly boosted the risk of breast cancer. In fact, they said that every additional serving of fries up the risk by 27%, which when all of a sudden you're thinking about going through the drive-through, you're thinking to yourself, what would I like my kids' health future to be like? I know what they're screaming for in the back seat. They're hungry, they're tired, they need something in their system. But maybe we could actually make a better choice, right? So on the other hand, every additional glass of whole milk per day cut the risk by 10%. So the type of fat you're consuming makes a world of difference. You know, the breast tissue is a glandular tissue that has lots of fat in it. So the best fat we can use is going to be better for us. The ones that are found in whole milk are found in nature. No other dietary trends were linked with future breast cancer risk. So gut function booster number one would be whole foods. This is, if you're looking to make your gut healthier, things on this list would be fantastic to choose. Now, there might be some that are better than others. For example, corn is chock full of omega-6s, which are pro-inflammatory. But, you know, once in a while in season, prepared well, no problem. But take something that's been genetically modified, sprayed with lots of stuff like that, maybe that's such a great choice. Okay? And you can also do it through concentrates. One thing we're big in this office is, hey, look, if you don't think you can actually consume at least 5 to 9 or 9 to 11 or 11 to 13 fruits and vegetables a day, which is what the CDC recommends optimally, you can also get this from a concentrated form. Juice Plus is actually a supplement we carry in our office. We love it. It's a whole food item. It actually is carried as such, so there's no tax on it because it's whole food. And just having a green, a red, and a purple twice a day is going to give you a full spectrum of things you would probably never eat in one day. And it takes care of probably at least the equivalent of about 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables. So there you are. You're already halfway there. Fantastic stuff, and it's great for kids too. There's actually a gummy version. We highly recommend it. Number two, your gut has the function of actually building your immunity, as we say, from the rooter to the tutor. It's inside you. Your GI system actually is open at both ends. So it's not like when you eat something that's actually quote unquote inside you, it's still outside of you. But once it gets absorbed, then it's inside of you. Your GI system is always being exposed to what you put in your mouth. And so your immunity is actually built as you actually, what you have going on inside, but also what comes in from the outside as well. And so Pigpen from the Peanuts cartoon always looked like he was kind of maybe disheveled and maybe not so healthy, but actually, maybe being in all that dirt all the time actually helps build his immunity. And there's actually a book that's been written about this. We'll get to that just a little bit. Your gut has its own culture. What's yours like? So they estimate that a human body contains, depending on your size, between 30 to 40, maybe up to even 50 trillion cells. But you have approximately 10 times that, meaning we're getting to the, whatever that would be, quadrillions, I guess, or more, of organisms that live on you or in you. And 99% of those are actually things you want to have there. They're actually healthy and actually produce good effects. The 1% that's not so good, when those become out of balance or out of check, it's not good for us. But endosymbiosis is where an organism lives in another one for a mutual permanent relationship. So it doesn't hurt you to actually have bacteria there, and the bacteria thrive because they're actually living on or inside of you. Kind of gross, I know, but that's actually what the deal is. Dysbiosis, on the other hand, is when you actually have an imbalance in the flora. You either have things not in their proper ratios, or you have something that should not be there or should be there in very low amounts growing out of control. So how dysbiosis is created is from lots of things. Using antibiotics is one. Okay, antibiotics are known things that will tend to either wipe out or change your flora. Number two, chronic stress changes this. You know, when your body's always in a fight or flight, it's hard to maintain the healthy critters. Number three, poor diet changes. You start getting to a more processed diet. Number four, using things like proton pump inhibitors, the purple pill, Nexium or Prilosec. You might think, well, it's helping my GI system, right? Actually, probably not. You might need to do it in the short term, but your body is doing some type of thing that's not right with its hydrochloric acid or digestive juice or something. So that will affect it. Hypersterile environments, meaning if you actually are keeping everything wiped down so much with your Clorox wipes and your antibacterial wipes and so forth, that nothing can grow there, well, guess what? You're probably not helping your growth of things inside of you too. Cesarean deliveries, actually know that when children grow through the birth canal, they pick up on the way into the world some bacteria that should be good for them for the rest of their lives, and they're extracted the other way. Doesn't happen so much. Premature weaning, chemotherapy can mess up and other things too. And this will result in a lot of things that we see walking around, things that are considered to be the modern illnesses, chronic illnesses of modern living, such as obesity, asthma, autoimmune disorders, colitis, cancer, mental disorders, autism, reduced vaccine responses, and more. A great book came out called Dirt is Good. This is probably about 5 years old now, written by 2 physiologists, PhDs in the field of microbiology. Here's what they say. That allergies are an unintended consequence of kids being protected too much. In years past, we would eat a lot more fermented foods, and those things contain bacteria. Also, we would also not so hyper-sterilize our things, and we pull things out of the ground and wash them off really well. whatever little critters after the dirt was washed off are in there are actually usually good for us. And so our immune systems become hypersensitized. We don't get that. Those neutrophils that actually fight off things, our white blood cells, when they have too much time on their hands, they start going around looking for something to do. They become grumpy and pro-inflammatory. And so when they finally see something that's foreign, like a piece of pollen, they become explosively inflammatory. They go crazy. That's often what triggers asthma and eczema and oftentimes food allergies. So we're not really doing our kids a favor by not saying, don't go outside and play, don't get messy, and by God, let's make sure you wipe down everything that you touch with a Clorox wipe. That's not a good thing to do for your children, okay? Well, here's one part of the immune system in your gut. It's called Peyer's patches. There's lymphoid tissue in there that has the epithelial lining of your gut lining walls. And those patches are places where we actually have encounters with things to build up our immune system. They're the immune sensors of the intestines. And they induce immune tolerance or defense against pathogens that results from a complex interplay between the immune cells, which are underneath, and the follicle-associated epithelium on the top. So those two things work together to actually serve as a form. And so that's the first line of defense that we still want to make sure we get strong. Number two, there's these Kupffer cells in our liver, which are like the macrophages, the big things in the liver that we have in our bloodstream, but there's in the liver, and they actually reside there to actually fight things off. They're important, and they help defend against particles and immunological reactive material passing from the GI tract through the portal system that goes to your liver, and making it considered as a final component in the gut barrier function, which is very important. So again, a well-maintained, healthy liver will actually have these cells there to help protect you and keep things in balance and keep you producing what you're supposed to for energy, detoxification, etc. Okay? Leaky gut syndrome is not a good thing. This is actually when that epithelial lining that we talked about for your gut starts to break down. The junctures between the cells that should be there have broken down. Normally, when these things come along in our system, such as dietary proteins, antibiotics, infections, and so forth, these things here should not be there. Some of those will actually cause intestinal damage. But this sort of juncture will actually keep them out. But the more we have of these things going on, these junctures can break. And what happens is things that would normally be processed get through to your bloodstream and sensitize you to those things. They actually know this is actually how different some of these hypersensitive allergies we have develop. And so what can we do? Well, we need to do things that actually help us heal the gut lining to restore the tight juncture that lets only the smallest digested particles go through. When you have a leaky gut, certain tiny particles that should never be able to enter your bloodstream start to make their way through. This presents a major problem as the vast majority of your immune system is found inside of your gut. A normal part of your immune response that serves to fight infections and diseases winds up overperforming, leading to chronic inflammation, which is at the root of most diseases, which is pretty powerful. That's what Dr. Josh asks one of our colleagues in chiropractic. So we want to make sure that we actually do things that actually, and so there's tests you can do to see for that if that's going on. Leaky gut, again, the causes can be things. If we want to be healthy, we would eat raw or frozen food, but if you actually eat cooked food, especially canned food, refined foods, cured and salted ones, those things really produce a lot of inflammatory responses. We start to see leukocytes or white blood cells coming in and starting to attack these various areas, and that's not so good. And what you can see here is actually these are the microvilli of the gut where you absorb things, the little folds, the little fingers that stick out there. A healthy one will actually have lots of projections that are narrow, they're able to absorb. These ones here have started to lose their integrity and they're actually swollen from all that abnormal stuff going on. They cannot absorb things as well. So in the case of unhealthy villi, things are passing through your GI system, but you're not making much use of it. And that's not a good place to be. We want to make sure we don't have that happening. So the causes of leaky gut, we list several of them here: food intolerances that may be present already, alcohol, food additives, drugs that would include things like antibiotics, NSAIDs, things that you would take like ibuprofen for pain or acetaminophen, birth control pills, steroids, chemotherapy agents, and antacids. Create things such as long-term stress, environmental toxins, and these are additional causes. Bacterial infections, yeast overgrowth, and parasites. And what we know is these allow certain things to cross over into your bloodstream that should not be found there. So if you do a test, we actually have a friend who does this for us, where we pick up things like zonulin or lactulose or mannitol. When those things are actually detected on something called a Wheat-Zoomer test, we know your GI system, your gut lining, the tight junctures have been broken, and you're absorbing way more things in an unprocessed state, leading you up to actually having toxicity and leaky gut syndrome that leads to illness like that. So gut function booster number 2 would be to take probiotics. We have one here that we really like a lot. Right here, it actually has 16 billion critters per capsule. We are out of them. We sold our last one. But please come in when we have more, and we'll get some for you. Prebiotics, things that actually the probiotics grow on, so inulin, fructooligosaccharides, and berberine from fermented foods. And so the top foods over here that contain these are things that not a lot of people sometimes eat, but they are very powerful to restore those things, would be leeks, Jerusalem artichokes, cultured foods of any kind, sauerkraut, asparagus, umami plum vinegar, radishes, black raspberries, and of course Greek yogurt. All great things. And you just want to make sure that the probiotic that you're taking is actually getting to where you need it to go. That's very important. Gut function number 3 is to have your nerves be healthy. They actually say your gut, your GI system has somewhere between 100 and 500 million nerve cells that second onto their brain in terms of, it's called the enteric nervous system. It contains 5 times as many nerve cells as even your spinal cord. So we're talking a lot of things that actually have to carry messages through that tissue. It's embedded from the top to the bottom. It's actually called your second brain. What's interesting is that if you actually even sever the vagus nerve, that system can still function to some degree on its own. It's that important. But it also makes neurotransmitters for your central nervous system, like acetylcholine, which is important for nerve signal transmission, dopamine, which is the reward one, and then serotonin, the one that actually makes us feel good, nice, and relaxed. Our gut's responsible for producing those things. If we are deficient in making those things, we often have either depression or the inability to enjoy life. The function of it are 90% of these nerves in the vagus nerve go to the brain, not from it, so it's primarily a sensory nerve system. It actually promotes food breakdown, absorption, excretion, and all those things, and it can control the gut behavior independently of the brain if it has to. Stress can be signaled by butterflies in the stomach. You know what this is like. Before you go on stage to give a speech or give a big performance, you get everything ramped up and you can actually feel like, oh my gosh, my stomach is turning over in knots kind of thing. It can promote emotional well-being as well too, producing over 30 neurotransmitters. 95% of your body's serotonin is actually in the GI system, so that's important. If you're not making enough serotonin, it's much a gut thing as it is in your brain. It can affect anxiety, depression, your bone health, and autism, and actually helps to mediate an immune response. As we saw before, having a healthy gut with healthy nerves there can actually make sure that when you encounter something as a toxin or something that's like an infectious agent, you respond appropriately and kill it before it enters your body and then becomes a full-blown illness. Okay? If the gut is inflamed, the brain will be inflamed as well too, and this is not a good thing to have going on. Microglia are the cells that hold the other nerves that do the work together. So when I was in school, they didn't really know what these nerve cells did. They said, we've seen them, we know they're there, but we're gonna have to have some more time. Well, from the time I left chiropractic college in 1992, they found out what these things do. They actually help phagocytize immune cells or engulf and swallow trash and particles from dying cells. And they prune these synapses between these things like a gardener trims an overgrown bush. So it means that it's almost like if you had a brain that was just too connected. Your brain's doing all these things and trying to make all these connections, where your brain would actually be like hyper vigilant, if you want to say it, or hyperactive. This thing goes back, prunes back only the ones that you don't need and leaves the ones that you do need. And so when microglia become hyperactive, they can overturn neurons and cause problems in the brain, so you cannot remember as much or learn as much as well. This also leads to being a happier person. So amazing news that those people who suffer depression, studies show that those people with healthier, diverse gut microbiomes are less likely to suffer from either malady. The science of the gut-brain connection is still young, especially as it relates to our mood, but studies continue to find promising correlations. There's evidence that a healthy gut can curb inflammation and cortisol levels, lower reaction to stress, improve memory, and even reduce neuroticism and social anxiety, which are not happy things. So again, just think about like, hey, taking care of your gut can make you a more pleasant person inside your own skin and more pleasant to be around for other people as well too. And actually a great promoter of mental health, which is great. So how would you treat leaky gut syndrome? Things like colostrum, the amino acid glutamine. We mentioned before prebiotics and probiotics and lactic acid yeast. We're helping restore that normal flora. There's a couple products that we can get for you. One is called Low Total Leaky Gut and L-glutamine from NutriWest, and chlorophyll complex in the process, which is something I've been taking quite regularly myself, and it has helped a lot. It really is just a great general cleanser of the whole system, but especially the GI system as it passes through. So if those nerves affect your gut health, what would happen if your food and flora were good? Let's say we're eating well, but my spine was not healthy. So this is an important question to ask, because something ultimately tells that gut what to do. It's the nerves, right? So let's think about our spine. If there's nerves that come from my mid-back that go to my stomach or small intestines, and actually have the situation going on where there's subluxation present, it's like having a dimmer switch turned down. Those nerves aren't dead. They're still doing something, but it's inappropriate. It may not be enough or maybe too much. Maybe it's hyper-excited to do things like that. Well, the only thing that will take care of that is the chiropractic adjustment, okay? I always like to share this story when I give this class because it gets to the point. This is actually somebody came to us in her late 30s who actually had known GI system problems. She actually had Crohn's disease, but her chief complaint was low back pain. In the process of getting her history, we found out, oh, you actually have Crohn's disease, and her situation was so bad that she actually had a portion of her colon removed to prevent further progression of the illness, but it was still happening. And she loved to run for fitness, and she just couldn't do it anymore. She had low back pain. So when we did her postural exam, we saw these changes that weren't so good. And then we actually took this x-ray, and from behind you can see that her torso is actually significantly shifted to the left. Her posture is so far to the left, it's actually pulling the nerves with it. And those ones actually go to, in this region, they actually go to the colon and lower GI tract. Well, this woman did not like the low back pain she was having with running, but she didn't like to have that bad colon either. We didn't know what we could do with either one of them, but I said, let's give it the old college try to reduce these subluxations, and we are confident your body will actually improve its nerve supply. Let's see what happens. And sure enough, within 3 months, that same woman actually had her spine straight up and down. She did amazingly well. And not only did her low back pain resolve, that she could actually now resume her running program, but number 2, she was able to actually not have any hits from Crohn's disease from that point forward, even for the next 20 years. When I saw her approximately 20 years after this, she had moved from our area, was still under regular maintenance chiropractic care. She thankfully had no return of her Crohn's disease or her low back pain, which is truly amazing. So we love seeing those kind of things when the body heals itself. So gut function number 3 would actually stay subluxation free through chiropractic care. Get adjusted, do your homework as shown here, or whatever you've been given to work on as far as traction blocks and exercises, and you're giving yourself the best chance to have this thing right here, send those messages through that spinal cord uninterrupted, communicating with those tissues and telling them, here's how to function today or at this moment, and regulate those functions for you like they're supposed to, which is wonderful. So, gut function number 4 is to regulate metabolism and hormones. And so this is actually fascinating. I'll go through the study. It's a lot of word on here, but what they did in this study was they took people who actually had what they would call some type of like hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, maybe prediabetes, 2, things like that. And so they put them into groups that were randomized, and they were done over multiple centers, and it was double-blinded, which means that the doctors and the patients, neither one knew who was getting the control placebo or the actual ingredients. And so in the 4 groups, they actually had one that was given a probiotic, okay, which is good. They were also given, the one group was given a prebiotic. Then they had a group that was receiving both of those, and then they actually had a group that received neither one. They received a placebo. So just usually it's going to be a sugar pill, but the patient actually thinks they're getting something that actually is active. Well, when they took this study and showed it, they did this test after 18 weeks, and they showed that when they did a test on glucose testing, fasting blood glucose, their A1C, and then checking the gut flora, that the group that got the placebo actually had their blood sugars get 13% worse. Okay, so now we know that not taking care of your gut can actually have things progress. And then we have the probiotic, which actually improved those values of having your sugar come up by 6%. The prebiotic improved it 37%, but if you got the double bonus of actually having both the probiotic and the prebiotic, you actually lowered your tendency to have those high sugar things by as much as 42%. So for sure, a healthy gut is essential for metabolism, and the best thing you can do is actually make sure you're giving yourself the things that actually the bacteria feed on and the bacteria themselves, because you're not going to get it from the typical American diet anymore, sadly. All right. Gut function number 4, make sure you take a good prebiotic and probiotic together to improve GI function. So to keep your gut healthy, you need to heat it. You start paying attention to it. No longer you're just going to medicate it and try to ignore it or whatever. You're going to start saying, what is this telling me? And if you don't know, you need some professional help. Ask. Number 2, weed it. Reduce the things that make it malfunction. Very simple. Reduce the processed foods. Reduce alcohol. Reduce highly sugarized foods. Reduce all those things. Foods that have been taken care of in a way that is very unnatural, sprayed and so forth. Number 3, feed it. Give it things that make it flourish. I've already mentioned a whole bunch of those. I hope you've been taking notes on this. If you want these slides or these lists, we'll be happy to give them to you. And then lastly, lead it. Continue to improve your choices and interactions. You know, everybody has to start somewhere. We recommend usually starting with one. One of the best things you can do is actually take the system survey that we have in our office to see actually how your GI function is doing, and start there. And if we come across things that are actually like they're doing well but not maybe good enough, we can always look into it deeper. Many times these things do have several layers like an onion to them, and you get to the root core issue, and lo and behold, the person's doing better. So we'll make sure you know what to do. Fill out the form that we will give you if you ask for it at the front desk, and then we will ask you in our next visit, and then we'll just set up a consultation time to go over it with you and give you some options about things you can do to actually supplement and restore that good GI health, and then make sure you maintain it. Okay? So this is not the end, it's the beginning. don't guess with your health. There's a doctor telling you a person that says, I don't think it's your gallbladder, but if you want a second opinion, I'll say it's kidneys. Let's be more precise than that and make sure we get better. I'll see you next week when we actually have Dr. Paul talking about how to heal the damaged gut.